are live. So, welcome to episode 222 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got all the way over there in Dublin, we've got Marty from the Trash Picture Show. Thank you for joining us, man. We don't get to do it often enough. You haven't been here since the 3-year anniversary show. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no, I had to come when you were talking about this movie. No one talks about this fucking movie, so I had to be here.
Yeah, no one does, unfortunately, and I'm glad that we are, and that's one of the cool things about this channel. We get to talk about things that people typically do not. Now, down here at the bottom, we've got Lord Billanaga-sama. Thank you. Yes. So, thank you very much for joining us for a little. This is better than Black Belt Theater because you typically got the Run Shaw thing. But thanks for joining us, and it's good to see you. 220 episodes later, you were here for episode number 2. So we don't get into Japanese film very much. We don't even do that much action thriller. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But we certainly don't get into samurai films at all. This will be the first one of its kind. And we're talking about Takashi Miike's remake of the classic 1962 samurai film. And I think this is one of the few films where the remake is better. We're talking about 13 Assassins. If you guys are ready to go, shall we get it going?
Bang the gun. You are, boss.
Boogie boogie. So one of the things that is burning up the airwaves right now online, on the internet, on your television screen is the FX series Shogun, which is based on James Clavell's novel of the same name, and is a remake of the old 1980 saga that they had with Richard Chamberlain and the great Toshiro Mifune. So I thought that this would be a fantastic opportunity to capitalize, and the timing is really good since we're talking about samurai, to get into one of my favorite samurai films that's different from most of the others, simply because it has so much fucking action. Let's go with Marty. Let's start off at the top. Marty, what did you think off the top of your head of Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins? I know you said you were going to try to catch a little bit of it before you came on, but you've seen it so many times. You're always a good guest that way.
I adore this movie along with Zada Toishi. I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It's kind of they're two very awesome fucking modern samurai movies. But obviously, I've seen the classics like Seven Samurai, Kira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, Ran, another fantastic example of a samurai movie. This is definitely a throwback to the kind of prime Kurosawa era samurai flick. But I understand, and I was saying this to you earlier on, Mike, that Miike didn't want to maybe drop the ball by doing a direct remake of Seven Samurai. So he went with this other kind of team of samurai movie with the 13 Assassins, but he still kept the Kurosawa flavor by having Kiga the Hunter, who's kind of a throwback to the rogue from Seven Samurai. And you can see that there's a lot of love and care put into this movie. And again, it's Takashi Miike, who's known to do kind of gratuitous kind of stuff. He's done Audition, he's done Ichi the Killer, but where this is different is it is violent, but it isn't like fucking Kill Bill where someone gets their arm cut off and there's blood, ridiculous fountains of blood spouting out for 10 minutes. The violence is impactful, but it's not done as a wink and a nod. It's done to show that there's consequences to this violence. And like I think the most kind of jaw-dropping scene in the movie and disturbing scene in the movie isn't the actual battle between the samurai, but the peasant girl. When the peasant girl is presented to Shinza, that is like, okay, we're on another level here, and that sticks with you, and that propels that. Yeah, you want these guys to succeed because this fucking sycophant has to be taken out, and that's why I love this movie.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. And I just want to say before we move over to Bill that this movie is currently available on Tubi. It's available on Plex. It's available on Roku. There are tons of free channels that are showing this right now. You can also catch, Tubi has the 1962 original film that's on there. That is different from this one. Miike took some liberties. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on. Lord Billanaga-sama, what did you think of Takashi and Miike? Now, Bill texted me and said, I can't find the fucking movie. And then he's like, oh, I found the fucking movie. And then his next question was, do I have to read? And I was like, yes. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, so, because on Tubi they got the dub version and the reading version.
Never watch a dubbed fucking movie. Fuck the dubbed movie, man. The flavor of a film is in its original language. You lose so much in those dubbing translations, although we did enjoy them as children watching Black Belt Theater, so on and so forth. I remember just recently watching on Tubi the Bruce Lee film Fist of Fury. That was the Chinese connection. For the first time in my life, I saw it in the original Mandarin, and it's a completely different experience. Yeah, it's a completely different experience. So what do you got for us, Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins?
I really am glad that I started watching Shogun before I started watching this, because it got me in the mindset, because, you know, I don't know shit about Japan, but I know a little bit about Japan. I saw Shogun way back when. I read the book. I read Taipei, you know, but it got me into the mindset of the history and the culture of this samurai Ronin films, and it really helped me. So I'm glad I did that. Now, you told me that this was just going to be a war movie that's very bloody. And back in the day, I saw Ichi the Killer and the Audition, and, you know, as much as you said it's not like that, I still was expecting a little bit of torture porn going on. So when it opened up with Harry Carey scene, I was a little bit worried, but I found that this movie is really well made, not in the gore that they show, even though you're right, the tortured woman was impactful. There was a lot of impact with stuff that they chose to keep off screen that your imagination filled in, including the Harry Carey scene where it was just carried by the sound design. So that pulled me in. I was very, very impressed by that. And I really enjoyed going through this war movie, because you were right. It is just a war movie. And it hits all the tropes that I'm used to for, you know, war movies. I won't list them all, but, you know, it was great going from each phase, from the initial, you know, getting the audience outraged at what they should be outraged by, getting the team, training the team, and then finally the climactic battle. It was a fantastically put together film. I was never bored, not in 1 second, even though I was reading the whole time.
I was telling Marty before we went on that if you ever get a chance with the Blu-ray, or if you ever, I think it's relatively inexpensive. It's like $9.99 or something like that, because it's just not big in America. But in the special features, there is a interview with Takashi Miike, and I said they missed a great opportunity because they sent some 21-year-old girl, some pretty Japanese girl, to interview him, and she just knew none of the correct questions. They should have put in someone older. And someone that understood film and the history of the country. She was just constantly like, oh my God, I couldn't look, you know, it's so scary, you know, and I like this person, you know, and I like that, you know, and you're just like, oh, Jesus, you know. But one of the things that Miike talked about, and Bill touched on it also, was the detail that he went into with the sound editing. And especially with the battle scenes. He said, when the swords clash, he wanted a slightly different sound for every sword. Because it isn't just, he's like, if you just keep hearing the same noise over and over and over again,
Right.
it becomes boring
Yeah.
after a while, and it becomes repetitive, and you lose focus. So he detailed every particular, sword strike to be just a slight, variation of the other, which kept it fresh during the entire time. I mean, it's like a 50-minute long battle scene, almost a full hour of nonstop action, and you're just drawn in for like the entirety of it. This might be the 4th or 5th time that I've seen it, and it's just, you can't stop watching it. I also loved the set designs, especially in the final scene where they just wreck that town and fortify it into like this hellscape with these fences that come together and the rooftops that are just littered with swords and bows and arrows, and that back room all the way in the back that they had, where they all like lead them into that trap where those 2 guys are waiting, and it's just like a graveyard of swords. Like I've never seen any, and there's just those 2 guys waiting there, and the one guy and his student, and the one Ronin guy, was it Mamiya or something like that? Hirayama. And he's just such a hard ass, and I'm like, holy shit, it's that fucking guy. And you're just drawn in the entire time. But at the same time, what really kind of drew me in was the way that the heroes, protagonists, 13 assassins are portrayed. So different from an American movie. In your average American movie, you're going to establish very early how badass everybody is. And you're going to have a brief clip of them doing something, slamming somebody's head into a car door, or, it's going to be, Mel Gibson, single-handedly taking out everybody back in the day, or, whoever is doing it nowadays. Like I just saw Reacher. I was watching the 2nd season of Reacher, and in the very first episode, he's at the ATM machine, and he figures out that the woman in front of him is being carjacked. So he walks over to the car, tells her to stay there, and he just reaches his hands through 2 closed doors because he's just a gorilla. He's like a, huge fucking gorilla, and pulls the guy out and beats him up, and then he just walks off. He's pulling the Chad thing. This, what I thought was interesting was that at the very beginning, you meet the leader, Shinza. He's fucking fishing.
Yeah.
He's just like, he wants to, there's just a bunch of other guys that are out there not talking to each other. He just wants some peace and quiet. And that's just such a completely different setup from what you would typically get in a Western movie, this sort of humbleness or humility, that these guys aren't going out of their, and you don't realize, you're rooting for them, but then you don't realize how badass they are until after the second half of the movie, when they just start cutting down 200 people.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, man, these guys are fucking maniacs. And they don't look like badasses. Nobody's jacked or ripped or anything like that, or built like, whatever. A couple of the guys have, big kind of beer bellies. A couple of them are old. Yeah. They do not look like this band of fucking killers. And they just are. And I love that about Japanese films, is they don't do it the way that American films do. I love American films, don't misunderstand me, but yeah, fucking aces right there.
Well, you can come across an American film that hits this once in a while. It's usually the lone assassin, the guy who was in the CIA, or the guy who was a badass Marine, but now he just wants to be at peace and retire and be up on a mountain. But generally he winds up being called back because someone kills his dog. This is just, come and talk to me because I got a proposition for you. And that leads you to the best stuff when he's interviewing the people who have had dealings with the leader of this clan, this sadist. That is where you really discover how much of a badass this guy is, not because he can beat people up, but because he has a code, and his code, you can see it in his face. His code has been disturbed. He's he has the face of like, yeah, this shit is going to stop, and it's going to stop fucking tomorrow.
Go ahead, Marty.
No, I like the fact it sets up Shinza as well. It does kind of like, okay, this character, he's fishing, but it also sets up the fact he's patient. He's a very patient character. He's incredibly patient. And the other thing I like about it, and it lends some feasibility to how these 13 guys are at least able to stand up to 200. This is peacetime, tail end Edo era Japan. As one of the characters say, there's so many samurais out there that have never even unsheathed a sword.
Yep.
And that's kind of also gives the advantage. That gives the feasibility. Okay, you've got these kind of hefty looking samurai and you've these young, naive, kind of eager samurai, but they're on equal footing. They're on equal footing, maybe a bit higher than the retainer and the guard for the shogun's brother. And it lends feasibility, and it also shows that it gives small moments, personal moments. Shinza's nephew, for example,
I loved him. Yeah,
he's a vagabond who just likes gambling and stuff.
He's just a drunk.
He's no real fucking purpose. So when Shinza's trying to convince him, hey, look, take on this mission, he talks to him on his terms. He uses terminology gamblers would use, and that's kind of cool as well. That like he's like, okay, I'll do this because it'll give me a sense of purpose. You also feel bad because his wife is okay with him going out whoring and gambling and stuff because he's not going to be killed. But then you can see that she's pretty fucking distraught when she goes off. And I think setting it in the tail end of Edo era Japan in peacetime is just it's the cherry on top, and it's not only the cherry on top, it's the foundation that makes the top and the bottom of this movie work. Sorry about the tangent, but that's
no. This is a good movie for tangents, actually, because there's substance here. There's substance
so much going on in this movie.
Yeah,
you talk about every time you turn around, there's some little thing that you could go off on a tangent on. It's just jam packed with cool stuff.
Hold on a second. We got a little comment here. We got Eric. What's happening, man? Sorry I didn't have time to watch the film before tonight, but it's in my queue to watch regardless. Have a great stream. Thank you, brother.
Thanks,
we'll see you in the next one, no doubt. Eric, and you may want to get out of here if you don't want to. I hate to drive anybody out of the chat, but I don't want you to catch any spoilers. Miike also talked about the fact that he deliberately ignored modernism. Like if you were to see like there's no, because he said like in today's society I would have to make like a female character and she would have to be a badass and she would have to be a equal to, if not better than, the other samurai or something like that. The guy, she always giving the other guy giving it to him in the neck. He's like, I wanted this to be completely retro in the way, and honored the way that those men lived back then. And that, it was a nod to, a forgotten time, and it's a time that really, I think Japan nowadays, they'd much rather just read manga and the comics about samurai than, they've completely changed their society now, not necessarily for the better. They've lost a lot. It's become a very soft society nowadays. They're a little too obliging. And granted, they had 2 atomic bombs dropped on them, but there are still people out there that remember this other time that existed and want to honor these types of characters that formed 1,000 years of history in Japan, even if it led to a bad end, which was World War II. That necessarily shouldn't be forgotten about or deliberately avoided.
Yeah, like keep in mind, there was fucking imperial troops holding out in islands right up until the fucking 60s, 70s as well, right?
Yeah.
So
those some hard fucking
you don't
men.
get a race of people like that anymore.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a parallel between modern Japan and this time near the end of the Edo, where they're just they're sitting around without purpose, just like you said about the nephew. That's kind of emblematic about the manga and waifu culture.
Yeah. One of the well, gee, I mean, let's get right into it in the beginning. We don't have to touch on every point, but talk about as many as we like. Mamiya and the guy opening his stomach in the very beginning, and if you've been watching Shogun, you can see that when a samurai opens up his stomach, you're supposed to have a second who, once you demonstrate the commitment to the cut, comes along and puts you out of your misery. This guy has nobody. He just does it all on his own and goes for a second cut, I guess, to make sure that he's going to bleed out as quickly as possible. But the look on his face and the fucking suffering, you're just like, holy shit, man. This guy, I can't even imagine that kind of pain. Yeah. And he does it in protest of this motherfucker, who is just one of the most, I don't know how to describe this guy. This should have been another guy in my top villains. Because he's a monster.
Yeah.
He's just a monster. He's not even really a human being. He's just a rapist and a murderer. And he kills women and he rapes, he kills children and he doesn't even see them as people. Yep. He's above them and that's all that. Yeah. And, when you hear that story that Shinza hears from the father, who is just suffering, being alive because his son is dead and his daughter-in-law has been raped and he lost them both in the same night. And he's like, this is torture. I just want to die. He's like, I only stay alive so that, I can be a witness, bear witness.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're just like, holy shit. I mean,
the other thing, Mike, is what makes it worse is he's this almost otaku level kind of ideals of fucking samurai. He talks about like, oh, the old days and the war. And like the scene where he kills that couple, he's trying to fucking be a samurai and cut off the guy's head.
Can't even do it.
Yeah.
He has to do it like 2 or 3 times. And then he's like, oh, I wonder, was this like, he's talking to someone else, I wonder, was this like what it was in the old days? They're like, you are totally out of fucking touch. And when he gets like finally caught, he's like, wait, no, this isn't what I wanted. And you're like, yeah, you fucking pathetic piece of fucking shit, you. It's just...
It's interesting because I'll jump real quick to the end and then we come back. At the end, when Shinza confronts him, he's like, why have you pulled that sword out? He's like, this is not a time for he just calls him a decorative little man.
Yeah.
Put your thing away, put the sword away like the decorative little man that you are. And, just stop pretending, that you're this, high-end warrior. Everybody is dying because of you. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting point in that Marty also brought up with Hanbei, his chief retainer and bodyguard. He's kind of trapped in this position where he's not allowed to, you would think, if this was a mob movie, somebody would just kill this fucking guy. He's like, Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. He's just complete psychotic. He doesn't operate on any sort of rational, plane of thought. And so they would just whack.
It's a great trope that only samurai movies can have, is this adherence to duty, which is, you kind of see it in mob movies, like you said, but it's never really fully realized except in, these samurai and Ronin movies where these guys realize what they're doing is wrong, but they're trapped in what they have to do because that's what the society is set up to do. Where they can't not do their duty. Otherwise, this shame would be more overwhelming than doing these evils, even though they can't stop because that's what they've been told to do. It's a really interesting way to develop a movie, and that's not something that an American movie can do.
Yeah, because no one would be able to relate to it's too, the Western world is too individualized. Yes. Whereas Asia is a very collectivist sort of society. It's about the group. And what the group thinks of you. You don't get to break away. You don't get to be an individual. You have to stay within the judgment of the surrounding community that you're a part of. Americans, they wouldn't get.
Yeah, we raised the rebel to this level of anti-hero, whereas this society raises the person who does their duty right until their death above anyone who just is a hard individual.
The closest we've gotten to it was Edward Zwick's The Last Samurai, and they had to bring in a white guy, to sort of bring that bit of individualism, that he introduces to that small village. A little bit, he bleeds a little bit in, but ultimately he becomes absorbed by the collective, and he becomes part of the group. There are tropes like that, like the noble savage. I hate to phrase it that way, but like Dances with Wolves or something like that. And eventually, what Lawrence of Arabia, where eventually they just become part of the community, and they try a little bit to bring that individualism into the group that they're become a part of, but they're always unsuccessful, and the success comes from joining in finally. But yeah, I mean, Hanbei just has no choice, and I can't find an illustration for him or an overlay for him from IMDb. But you feel bad for him. You feel bad for him because he's trying to influence this Naritsugu character, and the guy he doesn't hear anything.
And the worst part is he has to face off with his friend and become his friend's enemy on behalf of this rapist piece of shit.
I don't know, Bill. I kind of got the impression he also kind of had resentment for kind of Shinza because he was trying to get to the same level and surpass Shinza in this position, and Shinza had the job as a retainer with a good kind of shogunate family, whereas now he's landed in the same position. But he's stuck with this fucking dickhead, and he's like, "Yeah, now I wanted to be like you, and now I'm landed minding this fucking prick, and it's your fucking fault." And I got that. I think
you're onto something. Whereas Shinza, he's a widow, so that's a tragedy. And in the old days, widowhood used to be considered an affliction. So he's got that sort of thing going on. But, he spends all of his days going fishing. That's what his spare time. He's like, the guy apologizes, Sir Doy, comes in and says, "I'm sorry to call you in like this." He's like, "I've been a widow for years. I got tons of free time. There's nothing for me to do. Whatever. You want to invite me out? Yeah, sure, no problem. I got tons of free time." Versus Hanbei, who, you're right. It's best not to be jealous and, envy. Other people, covet other people's positions because look where he's landed. It's just a real fucking impossible situation. And all these people end up dying that probably all think their boss or their lord is a piece of absolute shit. And they have no choice but to march to these awful fucking deaths. And there are a lot of them in this movie for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that also lends to the cause of the 13 in that they actually have it's a just war.
Yes.
It's a just battle. We're doing this for the good of the country. This guy cannot be allowed to continue to rise. He needs to be stopped or everybody is going to suffer. The whole country is going to suffer. What's been happening at the local level is going to be everywhere. And so that'll do a hell of a lot for your motivation.
Yeah, again, I don't know shit about Japan's history really, but the era of war they keep talking about, I can't imagine that's a good thing to have war just across every clan across your island nation. It can't be good for anybody.
No.
Well, what we're looking at is sort of the beginning of the end of the era of war in Shogun. He becomes I can't remember his name. The real actor, the guy who's the main star, who's he's Toshiro Mifune. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Harinaga or Naga. I can't remember what his character's name is in Shogun. But he's about Toranaga-sama. He's based on Tokugawa Ieyasu, and so he is the man who forms the Tokugawa shogunate that controls all the warlords. He becomes the shogun, which ushers in about 300 years of peace, which doesn't end until Commodore Perry forces the gates open.
Right.
So everything that we're seeing in Shogun is the beginning of the end of the warring period, where everything is sort of ruled under one person, and that brings this peace, which is why in 13 Assassins, the man says samurai swords are only good for cutting radishes now.
Yeah.
The pawn shops are filled with them, with these guys. They're just selling their swords because, you're never going to have to cut anyone. But I loved some of these characters, too, that were part of the 13. And, you get a couple guys that just get introduced in the group. You get the one guy who's the student of the Ronin. And then the one kind of old man who wants to get some money out of it. I got to do a couple of things. And then he wants to get a couple of hookers. Now, I think at the end, he said, before I die, I want to do a couple of things I've never had the opportunity to do before I croak, because we're probably all going to die anyway.
That section of the film was one of my favorites because it just reminded me of like a classic caper movie where you're trying to put the team together and they all have their different motivations, and it's all like a son of a bitch, I'm in. Each one of them had their own reason for joining in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marty. Sorry.
No. It's just, I think it's kind of a 50-50 thing. I think Shinza's kind of motivation for taking up the mission was for the betterment of Japan. But the other part was, and it's beautifully executed, when the poor kind of mutilated girl is finished writing on the scroll and it reads Total Massacre, he has a smile on his face. He's like, yes, now he's probably done stuff that's fucking boring or shit, or he's probably had to do some heinous shit, but now he finally gets to die. And he knows he's going to die. There's no fucking illusions about this. He knows he will finally get a warrior's death, and a noble warrior's death. And that smile on his face says it all. He's almost in fucking tears. He's like, finally.
That's what he says. He tells that guy, he goes, I've been, since, I've been retired, I've been worried, how am I going to go out? In so many words. And he goes, fine, you've given me a just cause here.
Yeah.
Which I think, like Bill says, matters. Having a purpose.
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of wandering around aimlessly. And there are lots of samurai films that occur in peacetime. There's a great one with the guy who plays Toranaga-san from like 30 years ago called The Twilight Samurai. And he is the Twilight Samurai. And he's this guy, and he's a widow, and, he takes care of his mother, and I think he's got 2 small children, and he doesn't want to remarry. And like, he works in an office. He's like a bean counter, but he's a bean counter samurai. And the guys kind of make fun of him because he doesn't keep up his appearance, and he doesn't really bathe all that much. He doesn't really care because all he does is work and go home. So he's kind of lost his purpose until this thing happens that kind of thrusts him into action, and then it turns out he's actually a little bit of a badass. And kind of like this one. But yeah, I mean, these 13 guys finally having a purpose, great. I love that they buy out the town with that one scene with the mayor where they bring that big chest of gold, and the guy's trying to understand what they're talking. He's like, "You want to buy us out?" You go, "I don't know how the people are gonna, feel about that." And then they pull out all that fucking gold, and the guy stands up and he falls down again. He because everybody's so like that's like I interviewed Toshi Asaka, who makes those independent samurai films that are on Amazon, and like for samurai cinema, that's pretty high comedy. Just those small little scenes that are interwoven here and there, and they generally the comedic scenes among people that specialize in samurai films tend to be the director's favorite scenes. It's not the badass cut scene or the end fight scene or something. It's just these little small things along the way. Here's a question. Start off with Marty. Did you have a favorite character?
Definitely Kiga. Definitely the hunter.
The bandit in the woods. What's up, John?
I love. There's so many things about this character.
Yeah,
is he
he's
human?
My favorite.
Is he not fucking human? Is he a demon? Is he an oni? What's the fucking deal? The scene where he fucks all the women in the town, and then he's like still fucking. He's still hard. He's like, shit. I've gone through all the women. Hey, Mir, you'll do. And he ends up doing the fucking mayor in the arts. They're like, what is this fucking character? But that's why I love him. He's just this fucking insane kind of throwback to the kind of vagabond character from the Seven Samurai. And he's definitely the highlight of the movie for me.
Okay.
I agree. I was a little worried at first because I thought we were getting a character who was going to sort of undermine the mission, like the misshapen freak from 300.
Okay.
But I was pleasantly surprised that wasn't the case. But this guy, you're right, he could have been a demon or a guardian angel or something like that. But he had some of the best scenes, and I love this constant sort of dressing down of the samurai, being like the people's champion.
Mm-hmm. John, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us, man. Good to see you, man.
Sorry, I'm a little late, but thanks.
No, that's okay. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do. John, did you have a favorite character in this film?
Well, we're all talking
Maybe
about
you
the
did.
same guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just love the fact that he reminded me, if it was a Shakespearean play, of the fool. You know, always willing to, you think he's going to be a detriment, but you find out he probably knows more than anybody around. I kind of liked him. I liked him a lot. But then again, I had a hard time choosing anybody because I liked everyone, including the villains.
Yeah. There was jam packed with good characters, man.
Yeah.
I also like the master swordsman, the first guy that he sort of recruits, and I wanted to see more of him. Although what we did get of him was awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was good. My favorite, of course, is the same as you guys. And the fact that he would just start chewing people out. You would see all these samurai. You would think he would be like trying to impress them or something. Instead, he just starts ripping into people. This jackass. When they cut him down, he's like, "What the fuck? You could have killed me." This, that, and the other. He just starts getting on people's shit like right away. He was great. The Ronin, who was the master samurai, Shiza's one student. I liked his student, Ogura. Ogura in all of the character, there is no Woodland character in the original. He's just one of the guys that they bring in. And when they go in that scene at the dojo and there's 5 guys there, he's part of that.
Mike, do you think Miike put him in kind of as a nod to Seven Samurai?
Maybe. My gut says maybe it's about a 50-50 chance of that. And that sort of thing. I think it just adds an era, a little bit of mysticism, because even he says in the interview he's not sure, what this guy is. Are you seeing a man who's died in the battle, and then maybe you're just seeing his spirit,
right?
You're just seeing his spirit, comes back to talk to the one man who's left. What are you going to do now? He kind of tries to discern, because when the nephew is Shinro Kuro. When the battle's over, he's the only one left alive, and you can tell he's a little fucked up, And this man just sort of appears again, and he's jovial, and he's trying to what are you going to do now? What's next? He's trying to kickstart him a little bit, because you get the impression if he could just lay down there and just die if he wanted to,
I'm sure he doesn't know what to do because I'm sure he expected to die doing this mission. But once you're the one that survived, what do you do? What is your choice now?
Yeah. And at the end he's like, well, maybe I'll just become a bandit, I'll hop a ship to America, make love to women. He's like, you're on the right path now. He gets a little encouragement, so for me it would be nice to believe that unfortunately he did die in the battle, and that the person that you were seeing throughout the movie was the real guy, Kira, but then his spirit comes back to sort of guide this man along. To step forward into the next thing. That would work for me. Yeah, I liked the nephew. I thought that he was a cool character. Like I said, I liked that these guys were not like Bill was saying. In a Western movie, he used to be this. His name is
Yeah.
Bob, but he's not really Bob. He used to be this, and now he's been called back for. And it would be Jason Statham, and at some point he'd take his shirt off, and I'd be like, I'm not fucking watching this movie again. It'd be that sort of thing. He just did something like that called The Beekeeper. But he's not really a beekeeper. He's beekeeper means top secret. Blah blah blah.
Keeping a hive together.
Yeah, instead you just got these fat bald guys. Some old guys, some young guys, a real wise ass, who lives in the fucking woods, fucking trying to bang the boss's wife, or the boss's girl. This guy, you just put this mismatched band of people together, but then the shit hits the fan and it is fucking on.
Right.
And they just blow up and just become these insane fucking killers because they don't look like you see these guys, you would pass them in the street and not pay them a second. They don't look like Reacher. They don't look like Chris Hemsworth. They don't look like Stallone or Van Damme or Arnold or any of these guys.
The Wolverines, man.
Yeah, and they're but once those swords and spears start flying, man, you're like, fuck, these guys are killers.
If you study or read about some of the samurai stories and such like that, they were that way. They weren't ones that were outstanding in looks and whatever. They kept that, not so much simple, but more like unassuming, nature about them. Ironically, I got to study a lot about this stuff when I was studying theater history at Stockton under the guise of Pat Hecht, the teacher, because she would explain how, especially with stories like these, they were meant to inspire the males in that culture to keep going. Because then she would turn around and use where were also stories like that would be used, like in Shakespeare, or stories like that would be used in other type of literature to point to an inspiration. I mean, you were talking about the guy who came back when the guy was dead at the end when he was looking like he was dying. I thought he was more like Obi-Wan Kenobi. That person who was there in interviews, he was beyond still guiding the younger warrior type deal until his path was done.
Well, he's clearly not the same because he's got a wound in his neck.
Right.
You don't take a short sword through the neck and then, just come back and start talking to people. So clearly, he's on
Star Wars.
Star
Wars you can. Let me rip off that barely an inconvenience.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the optimist and give him the benefit of the doubt that he is some supernatural force, because when the two lads start fucking beating him over the head with the fucking logs, he's like, what? It's like I like that. I think a less competent director, that would be silly or cheesy.
Right.
But it works with this character because Miike makes it work, and it like you said, it works. The ambiguity angle, it can work, but it can also work as a kind of supernatural angle. But it's never like he's a ghost kind of in either. Like so,
none of those cool little things are overwhelming or ridiculous.
Right.
I thought, getting back to before the big battle. You mentioned, Mike, about the bits of comedy being the most standout scenes and the director's favorite. I like the scene with the leeches where they're walking through the jungle.
Right.
He's laughing at the guy. You got leeches all over your face. Looks great. And then he's like, got them all over his chest. Just a real quick little funny, humorous thing to lighten the mood, but it didn't go on forever. It wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't too slapstick, and it
makes him human,
not unearned.
It makes him, gives him a human quality about that, which I think really travels throughout the whole picture. They're not flexing muscles here and whatever. They're normal human beings stepping up to do what was right.
Yeah, and that's that archetype sort of thing that these stories are meant to inspire in the average person. It's not not the samurai were not out of reach of the ordinary person, but you can see yourself in them and sort of embody some of that virtue somewhere down the line.
Exactly.
You two can do the right thing.
Yeah.
There you go. There was another great scene also where the guy sees that long stick bug and he starts freaking out. And Kira says, "Don't be a little girl." And
he
the
fucking
guy
eats
gets the guy gets pissed off. He's like, "What? Like, what did you say to me?" Is one of the young kids. He's like, "What did you say to me?" And he just takes it and starts fucking eating it. The guy's like, "Oh shit, no, come on." What we're talking about here is an exceptional piece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And Miike has done 3 of these. And there's also his Zatoichi's interpretation of Zatoichi, the Blind Swordsman, which has a hell of a story also.
That's fucking great. That's a great fucking movie.
Now, I love the original Zatoichi, Tale of Zatoichi, or Zatoichi, Darkness is his ally. The old black and white ones. I love those too. But Miike's is very fucking competent. And then what Marty was also saying, he's got one that's also a little bit more on the supernatural end of things, called Blade of the Immortal.
I think it's an adaptation of a manga from the 80s or 90s. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. But Miike is, it's easy to dismiss because of the torture porn. It's easy to dismiss because of Audition or Ichi the Killer, these sorts of things. But he is a very, very competent director and filmmaker. And that he happens to lean in that sort of ultra-violent direction and that can cross the line into something else. It's easy to say, no, I'm not watching that fucking guy, but he has a roster of films. And he's about to drop one later this year on Netflix, which is about a serial killer versus a psychopath, a Japanese film. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Now, at this point, if he's got something, I'm watching it. If I find Takashi Miike has got something that I've got access to, I'm going to give it a try. Let's get into we're about 45 minutes in. Let's get into the final battle.
Sure.
And I'll just take it around this way. If anybody wants to jump in with a highlight.
The thing I noticed jumping into it as they were leaving, as they were heading off to this battle, obvious symbolism was obvious, but as they head toward this final battle, heavy rain starts falling. And I thought that was a nice touch.
Okay. For me, one of the scenes that I really liked, and it's a small scene, and again, like Bill said earlier, it's one of those things that you don't see it happen, and it leaves it to your imagination, is when the man who tells the story in the beginning to Shinza about his son and his daughter-in-law is also the man who's blocking the bridge that won't allow them to pass. And you could see the look on his, like he hates that motherfucker. He's like, I would like kill you right fucking now. But the rules won't let him.
Yeah.
Right. The rules won't let him. The rules of the collectivist society will not allow him to take action against this man because the man is higher on the food chain than he is. All he can do is block the bridge. And then you see the minute that they decide to leave, because the man is Noritsugu insults him and calls him Daddy Monkey. He's like, his Daddy Monkey, is it like he's gonna, and he's like, you mother, all those guys come up with the rifles, with the flintlocks, like, we'll fucking shoot your ass. We will go that far. But, the guy can't touch him. And then the minute they leave, he just drops to his knees and opens up his shirt because he's getting ready to cut himself open.
But he gets the X.
Yeah, he gets the second. The guy stands behind him and gives him the second. And
you see the blade going down and the sound.
Oh, that's right.
The brilliant part.
Yeah.
Again, off
you
camera.
never see the head leave the body. It's so swift.
Yeah.
The blade goes through the fucking head before the head seems to realize that it's been decapitated. And that's where he cuts the fucking scene right there. And I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking hardcore.
Like you and Bill were saying, the sound effect is far more visceral than what you actually see. And as you said, Miike deliberately kind of tweak the sound of the blades, because not everyone's going to have the same swinging technique. Not
Right.
every blade is going to be the same weight. Not every
Right.
person is going to have the same kind of armor or flesh. So it makes sense. But the sound, like Bill was saying, you don't need to show fucking blood spewing out. Just the sound that does the job.
We've talked about this on the show before, Mike, about sound and how it's done. It stimulates the imagination.
Yes.
Which by far is better than anything some people can put on film.
Yep.
What's in your head type deal. And I love that.
You can tell this guy. You can tell this guy gave a fuck. You know,
It's
he
good
gives a fuck
storytelling
about-
done by a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it crosses over from good to great. Actually,
Yeah,
I think it's great
I agree.
storytelling. Like Bill said, there's so many small things happening here
Right.
that it's difficult to sort of pin them all down. It's almost like whack-a-mole.
Right.
Something is always happening in every scene. There's no wasted thing happening here. Everything has its purpose that leads to something else. There are no threads that go nowhere. This happened, and all right, well, where the fuck did that go? Everything is there for a purpose.
And with everything that happens, which goes to what I think, not once did I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like I got to rewind. It was all laid out right there for you.
Yeah.
As the viewer. And I
Now,
got a kick out of that, man.
if you look at the original, because that's on Tubi now too, the guy who plays the boss, it's overacting. Like
Of
you
course.
can tell instantly it's over. Like his eyes are real big and he's yelling all the time. And
You said it was 63, right?
62.
Yeah.
So, we should give some credit to the guy who plays Naritsugu, who plays the monster. It's such an understated and he's almost contemplative. Like as he's doing these things, he's thinking things out as he's, wait a minute, what is this? Like when he talks to Hanbei after he arrows that woman and the little kid, and he's like, your job is to protect me.
Right.
Wait, your job is to dive, and you could see him like making the progression in his life. Your job is to die for me. Okay,
Right.
so like, what's the problem? Like, why are you belly aching at me?
Exactly.
What exactly? This is what you're actually here for, isn't it? And in a monstrous kind of way, he's not wrong.
Yeah,
You're just
exactly. He's a piece of shit, but he's living by the word of the law instead of the spirit of the law. Kind of.
right. Yeah.
Mike, the other thing I liked with that scene where he killed the family, there's a kind of throwback, like as we were saying with Ray Fiennes and Schindler's List, he's walked around the background, he kicks the football, and then that's fucking repeated with Hanbei's fucking head.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Son of a bitch, man. That's what really pisses Shinza off. That's what really pisses Shinza off at the end. I mean, we were talking about this monstrous battle, and just it goes very well for a while with the explosions and the arrows, and they get them with the element of surprise, and these guys really aren't invested in fighting for this guy. And there are a couple examples of it there where the other guys are like clearly scared out of their fucking minds.
Exactly.
But then, unfortunately, what starts to happen is you see it starts to catch up to him, and they start to die. Like that one guy gets the spear right through the door, like he's just kind of resting, and he's looking at the other guy. He's like, "Holy shit, this is crazy!" They're kind of smiling at each other, and then the spear just goes right fucking through him, and you're just like, "Oh fuck, these guys!" And they all just die these awful deaths. And then Shinza and Hanbei go at it. And
I gotta say, it reminded me so much of Saving Private Ryan. I was watching this thing, just again, war movie tropes, and I'm just going, "This is Saving Private Ryan."
But Bill, I'd say that all goes back to fucking Kurosawa. You have the likes of fucking Magnificent Seven, where these guys are picked off, and then you have other war movies. The kind of team, they're picked off one by one.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool.
Obviously those tropes originated with Kurosawa, and Spielberg was repeating them. Obviously,
you can see the inspiration and the influence.
It's come full circle. that's something cool I like as
Right.
well.
Even Quentin Tarantino at times with some of his stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you just see it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just see it. Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly it's visual. The story could be better, could be worse, you know, this kind of thing. You're basically there to watch the gratuitous blood, you know, and the over the top, you know, action. That really, you know, it's more fun than anything else. This is not a fun movie necessarily. There are some humorous things in it, but it's a serious movie. And I think, you know, that's the difference between top level entertainment, which you've got with Tarantino, and then you start to move into cinema, which is something else entirely. But yeah, so all this goes back to Kurosawa and you know these fantastic movies, and there are so many of them out there that aren't even Kurosawa, like Samurai Rebellion or Harakiri. If you ever see Harakiri, you're just like, holy shit! It's just this tragedy, you know, about opening and what it means to be a samurai and like the emptying of the code. But
we were talking about Kurosawa today with a bunch of people at the theater, and it was funny because I was getting ready to go into teacher mode because some of them, when you mention some of the more classic directors or storytellers, some of the younger ones don't. And it was nice to see a 19-year-old kid go, no, wait, and boom, he laid it all out. And he goes, I'm a huge Kurosawa fan, and I'm going, there's hope. Man,
they're still out there. They're still out there.
Yeah.
They're still they're few and far between, and I mean, unfortunately, we saw that in the interview with that you know they clearly hired this little girl to. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. All right, I've got some bar issues here with my Wi-Fi, but okay. But I mean, anybody got a favorite scene from the battle?
The thing I was not expecting those ramparts to go up. Like I was trying to figure out how this battle's going to play out, and then the walls start closing in, and I went, "Oh shit, that is brilliant!" I knew how it was going to play out from there. I was like, "Yes, do it!" And then they pan up, and you see the arrows and the swords, and you're like, "They're prepped." I love it.
The set design in that final fucking that last hour is just genius. The set design is just fucking genius because it's just a small it's really a small enclosed space. But they turn every small space into a individual bloodbath. Go ahead, Marty.
There's a scene there. First off, I just want to ask: I love this movie? This movie kicks arse, but I got a question for Bill, John, and yourself. Did the flaming cattle, the digital flaming cattle, take you out of it a wee bit, or is that just me?
The CGI looked a little goofy.
Yeah.
But the idea, the concept of flaming cattle was so great that I was enjoying it. And I understand you can't light cows on fire anymore. It's like, it's it was 1963. They might do that.
For the days when you could light cows.
Hey man, I'm going out for a burger after this. I don't know about you motherfuckers. I'm going to have some burned cow as soon as I get out of here. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm going to have a very late dinner.
No, it didn't throw me off at all, man.
No, it didn't throw me off either. Like you said, the CGI is a little wonky, but I accept that Japan does not have the budget for those types of things. So I'll roll with it.
Unless it's Godzilla, minus
yeah. Well, I love Shin Godzilla, but
the scene that kind of grabbed me though, Mike, was where Hanabe goes in to fucking reconnoiter the village first. And there's just that kid just standing there pissing.
Piss.
Like, it's like
he's looking at him.
I think
what the fuck are you doing out here, kid? Little bastard. Jesus Christ. I think Bill, John, you got a favorite scene?
No, actually,
the whole thing.
I loved every scene. I just got into this thing, and completely zoned out. I can't pick one. I'm probably gonna have to watch it again and then say that's it. I really did. I really just sucked it all in.
For me, it was when Hirayama finally just picks up the rock to bash that guy's fucking head in right before he dies. He kills like 3 guys because what ends up happening, like a lot of the guys get killed, but then a lot of the guys just finally just drop from exhaustion from being cut. Like they're just cut to shit and they just can't fight anymore and they just drop and die. But here, that's what happens to Hirayama and his student, and his students like trying to reach out to him and he's just dying. And he just like he said in the dojo, pick up, do anything, whatever you have to do. There are no rules here. This isn't like a dojo. This is going to be a fight to the death. Kill these motherfuckers. And you can see he just picks up this rock and he just slams it on this fucking guy. And like these shots of the other samurai from the opposing team, like they've just gone crazy. Like those ones that are, there's 2 or 3 of them that are just like hysterically laughing. Like they've just completely fucking lost it. And that one guy comes and bonks the one over the head. But then Hirayama takes a couple of them and just kills him with a fucking rock.
Yeah.
I hate to bring it back to Spielberg, but it reminded me of the scene where he's throwing his helmet at the guy and throwing the gun at the guy.
Tom Sizemore, rest in peace, man. Rest in peace, Tom Sizemore. Yeah. Well, I mean, we get to the end, and I mean, Shinza and fucking Hanbei, and we talked about the kicking of the fucking head, though.
Yeah,
like it doesn't stop with this guy. It just he's incapable of understanding. I think even at the end, he doesn't understand. He's almost dramatic. He's like, "Thank you for the most exciting day of my life."
Right.
And he's like, happy to oblige you.
It's a great scene when he's sitting there crying like a baby after, he almost is like, oh, he wins because he liked it so much. But then, he gets gut stabbed and starts crying because he finally feels real pain. And it's not what he imagines, or it's not his psychological, sexual sort of sadistic pain, but he's feeling real pain and fear. And that was a good scene. That was a great.
Shinza says, "Well, that was unexpected." When he starts crying, he's like, "I didn't see that coming." Yeah.
I took it as the fact that he realized it was over. I really thought at the time, before he got stabbed in the stomach and started crying, he was going to live forever, or at least in his mind, a sense of hubris. So when it actually happened, in a very basic way, that's when he was like, "Oh shit." That's it.
The other thing I liked, Mike, was Shinza's been fighting. He's been using particular techniques to fight. He's been giving it his all, and he's given these guys the honor of fighting at his fucking level. When he's fighting Hanabi, it's a serious fucking fight. He's using a serious technique to fight. When he kills your man, he's like, "Fuck this cunt, you don't deserve my best," and he just fucking hacks the head, and it even goes into the fucking side of the
I thought it was gonna fall off the yeah.
It's like, "Fuck this, you don't deserve my best."
No wasted effort here. No wasted effort.
No.
Fantastic. And there is one scene, when we get to the end and the nephew, even after Kira visits him, there's a scene where he tries to throw the sword away. But he doesn't. He holds on to it.
Yeah.
Like it's like, almost like at the last second. No. And so, I mean, does he become someone like his uncle? Who, maybe did this one thing and now is just going to, retire into, old age and, go fishing, I don't think he's going to become a bandit, like he says. I don't think he's going to sail to America.
Right.
I don't think so. I think he's going to stay with the tradition. That's, what the romantic, inclination in me says. He keeps with the tradition. He honors the people that, that died there that day. And
I love the fact it's the professional gambler as well who survives. After all the characters, it's the dude who fucking was the gambler that was the one who made it out.
Right.
Well, there's a great line where it says, betting on yourself is real gambling.
Yeah.
That's real gambling. Betting on yourself. He goes, his uncle tells him, he goes, "You're trying too hard." With all this drinking and the betting houses and all this stuff that you're doing, and falling all. And he's not real, he's kind of gently rebuking him, but he's not really upset with him. He's, still trying to teach him a little bit, So I think he sees something in him. You could be doing better than this, this sort of thing,
I think, Mike, when he was going to throw the sword away, the nephew was going to throw it away and stops. I think he accepts the tradition then.
Yeah.
Like if he wasn't going to reject it all and then go to America and sleep with it would have been gone. But he did. He stopped because he knew after, especially what he went through, and witnessed and everything else. I don't think he could.
That's why, because before he was a drunk and a gambler because he had no purpose, and now he's tasted this greater purpose in his life. There's no way he can throw away being a samurai now.
He's also probably reflecting.
He understands.
He's also probably reflecting on the fact. Well, my uncle was a widower, but he left because his wife died and stuff like this. So maybe I've got a wife. I still have potential. And I'm gonna fucking live. I'm gonna live the life my uncle didn't get to live properly.
Right.
Yeah. And he walks away and he's got this kind of grin on his face. That's the last scene. He's got this grin on his face. And Miike said, he didn't really, specify. I think he did it on his own. It wasn't from direction. But the final scene in the film is him sort of walking into the camera with this grin on his face, and then it cuts to the credits. Miike really didn't offer. He left it ambiguous. As to, what it actually means. But I think that he is, like Bill says, he's going to stick with he's found a purpose. He's found a purpose. He's not going to let it go.
Exactly.
Even though this is the end, this is right before the Meiji Restoration, so the end of the samurai is about to, the era of the samurai is about to end, which is basically what the last samurai was about. But for as long as this lasts,
being a hero at all.
Right. Like no one will ever, like they show that in the, he died of an illness. They write it out in a completely different, nondescript and, dishonest way. Yeah, he just, he fell ill and he died, and it just gets complete. And there's a lot of that. That's a common trope where things like that happen, or things that people are embarrassed by. History just kind of whitewashes it. There's quite a bit of there are a few samurai films that I own. That are like that, and the true story never really comes out. A couple people know about it, and then they come up with an official narrative, and that's all you ever hear about it. Fantastic piece of filmmaking.
And then they roll the ark into the warehouse, and it's put on a shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's this huge fucking warehouse. Another story. All right.
And they return back to the Shire and smile.
Yeah, exactly. Sadly at each other, just kind of sadly. I mean, the guy's gonna marry Rosie, so we'll be all right.
There you go.
That's an interesting thing too. Just that Sam was the only one who kind of evolves.
Right.
Everybody else kind of stays the same. Frodo can't hack it.
Frodo got ill and never came back.
Frodo's got PTSD. And he can't.
We had a discussion about it because I turned around and said, "The Lord of the Rings is Sam's story. Yeah, it really is. I mean, Frodo's bearing away, but it's Sam. It's Sam's story. It really is.
And he is
journey.
You watch him go from being a simpleton, to being the hero.
He's that working class archetype that is there for people to identify with. Mm-hmm. You can't be Frodo. You got to be Sam.
Right. You got to be Sam.
The end of the hero's journey is that the hero returns home and spreads light into his home. He takes all these things that he's learned and brings it into his new community. That isn't a point of the hero's journey that gets discussed very much. It's just about the journey. It never focuses on the return.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Is there any part of this film that we have not discussed that you would like to touch on? John, is there anything? You came in a little late. Anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm thinking what you guys are saying. I'm like, good. If I was here from the beginning, we would have been on the same page.
It really does sound like we're all on the same level with this movie.
Yeah.
It all sounds like we all appreciated it much in the same way, which is kind of rare on this show because we always get these diverging
Points
opinions.
of view.
This one is really we're all
Man, when
right
it's
there.
good, you know it's good.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's great.
it's
You know
another
it's
thing.
great.
It's another thing too, and you know, is this a guy movie? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a guy movie. It's a guy, like, you know, yeah. This isn't somewhere you wouldn't take a woman to see this necessarily
it
or
ain't a
anything
chick
like
flick.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ain't anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so people finding purpose and putting down evil and sacrificing themselves, and that's kind of that's a guy path kind of thing.
Well, look who reads stories like that. I mean, no joke intended. I don't know if it's a guy movie. I think it's people who read those. We made references to Spielberg and Private Ryan.
Yeah.
We made references to Lord of the Rings. We made references to Star Wars.
Well,
which is more of the masculine story.
It's
calls to the
hero
story calls to people.
There's touches of pulp adventure in this as well, which is I think fucking something that's intrinsical to like coming of age. Yeah. I think we've all read like comic books or fucking boys' adventure stories or war stories, and this has its roots in that as well.
It's a war story, and it's also a morality tale. It's a bit of a morality tale, and in the way that the American Western is almost always a morality tale.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to the part in the stream where we rate the film. This channel has a rating system that goes from 0 to 5 up by halves. So 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather have a stranger sneeze on me than watch this fucking movie again, all the way to 5, which is this is cinema. This is the destination. This is why I discuss films in the first place. Marty, what would you give Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins?
I'm gonna give it a 5. I would give it a 4.5, but maybe I'm being nitpicky about the flaming digital cows. I'll give it a 5.
Get stuck on. All right, a 5. Lord Billanaga-sama, what are you giving 13 Assassins?
I don't really know if I could give it a 4.5 or a 5 or somewhere in between, because I don't have enough to compare it to. I'm not as versed as I should be in samurai movies and Japanese film in general. I've seen some. Like I said, I don't know shit about shit, but I did watch Shogun. So I'm gonna place it in between 4.5 and a 5. It was an excellent film. I enjoyed it. There was nothing I didn't like about it, so might as well give it a 5, I guess.
Okay. All right. Because I was saying you've been in here since episode 2. You can't put in between the two. It's got to be one of the
rules, like an American individual.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. Yeah. Captain Algren over here. All right. John K. Alvarez, what do you got for us?
I'm going to give it a 5 for 2 particular reasons. One, I too know very little of samurai movies or this type of movie, but after seeing it, it makes me want to go and see more.
Yeah.
There's an inspiration now for me to throw away this ignorance of this type of film or film style and watch it. And 2, I dug the digital flaming cow. So I'm putting it right up there for that reason, that after all this movie, they had the balls.
You hear that?
They had the balls to put the digital flaming cow in. I thought McDonald's.
What the hell is that? Is that Godzilla?
Yeah.
It's Godzilla.
Straight from Tokyo, my friend Janet sent him.
There you
He's
go.
come to cook all the cows.
Japanese film. He's going to make an appearance.
I would go. Yeah, that would be a hell of a thing if at the end of the movie Godzilla showed up. That would be. The one guy fucking makes it. His foot just comes down. Boom.
Boom. Hell with these stories. Boom.
Just for relevant content's sake, just so you know, if you have Apple TV, the Monarch series, Legacy of Monsters, the Godzilla series with Kurt Russell, I watched it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. It's got Kurt Russell and it's got some Godzilla. It's got some kaijus. it's been renewed for a second season, so they'll be back.
Oh, okay.
So more monsters, more Godzilla, more kaiju's. For me in this one, I'm going to go with 5. I am extremely well versed in samurai films. I've been watching them for a long time, and there's a universal difference between the old Run Run Shaw, Chinese kung fu movies and samurai films, and that samurai films are about a story, and they usually have a limited amount of action. There's usually action at the end, interspersed, but they're not these long sequencey fight scenes. You're focused on the story, and story is very important. This film, conversely, has an enormous, unprecedented, lengthy fight scene, and it's just perfect.
Right.
And like I said before, the brilliance of the set designs in the town for the whole second half of the movie, turning every little small corner, it made every small space seem huge.
Right.
And the sound editing, like we talked about before, the performances, the story itself, the way he expanded further than what they were doing in 1962. And 1962 was not a bad year for samurai films. It wasn't.
Right.
This was after Seven Samurai had been, which I would argue is the quintessential samurai film, and just a perfect film. I don't think there's ever really been one that's better. Well, maybe a couple that were close. But yeah, 5. And if this has inspired me, actually, I think I announced it a few months ago that I had opened a channel for samurai films called Shikon, and I had my friend Josh come up with like an intro Japanese samurai music for it, and it's just ready to go. I just have to start reviewing films. This has inspired me. Between this and Shogun, I'm going to be dropping hopefully something this weekend and regularly. I have about 50 movies in my possession that I'm ready to start reviewing on at any time. So I'm ready to go. And 5. Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins, 5 stars. All right, Marty, you got anything you want to plug?
I have I have a video coming up where I'm going to see. Obviously, it's a classic, and the ambiguous ending is fantastic. But I'm going to try and do a video discussing which acts as a better sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing, the video game or the comic book series from Dark Horse Comics in the 90s. So.
That sounds good.
Okay, well, that's interesting. All right, yeah, you deep dive on that, and Alien, especially Alien and Predator, especially.
Yeah.
Lord Bill Nagasama, anything?
If anyone's looking for a bass player for a band, Monmouth, Ocean County, New Jersey, I am between bands right now, but I am using the time to my advantage. I will see you at Dragons and Drafts in Monmouth County, either at Twin Lights or at Ross Brewing sometime in May. So anyone looking to start a band or needs a bass player, get in touch.
Is that D&D? Dragons and Drafts?
Okay. Live D&D, Drankin and Sworden.
All right. John, anything?
I just found out before I left work tonight that tomorrow, I didn't think we were changing our films, we're getting A24 Civil War.
Yes.
Ooh.
Is coming. So I'm going to probably wind up checking that out this weekend.
Okay.
So that's right now my game plan. I just actually want to sit and watch a whole movie. When Mike talked me into seeing Late Night with the Devil, after he saw it, I'm going, you know what? It's been a while since I've actually sat and watched the whole movie straight through, unless I'm watching it for the show. In a theater, sitting there. But I'm going, why not, man? Let's check out Civil War and see what it's all about.
I will be going to see Civil War on Saturday. I think I have tickets for 1:00. So I'm curious as to what that's going to be about. I just got videos up for reviews. The first Omen, which was Monkey Man Dev Patel, which was just fucking great. Godzilla versus the new Godzilla Kong, which was they've turned into action thrillers. The new Roadhouse. So, you just got a bunch of stuff. It's just a bunch of relevant content coming out recently. But those reviews are up on the channel. Civil War will be coming up on Saturday. I think I'm going to take a little hiatus from live streaming. We'll take a couple of weeks off, this, that, and the other. And I'll start to work on Shikon. And I've got start to get some samurai movies up. And if you're not watching it, watch fucking Shogun on FX with Hulu. It is some of the best television that has happened since the early seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
It is fucking spectacular. And if you're talking like we've been talking for the past hour and 20 minutes about no scene wasted, no line wasted, everything happening for a purpose, every episode being better than the one before it, Shogun is your series to watch. I can't imagine. House of the Dragon is going to drop this year, so we'll see what they do with season 2 of that. But this looks like a real contender for the best show of the year, and probably maybe even the best show that's come along in the past 5 years. Cool. It blows the old Chamberlain one out of the water because it's.
If you're worried about remakes or anything, it really does hold up. It stands on its own. It honors the original. It does a heck of a job playing out the book. It's fantastic.
And because it shows it from this shows it from the Japanese perspective, where Shogun was more from Blackthorn's perspective.
Yes.
Right.
The original one, and it had Toshiro Mifune, and rest in peace Mifune, rest in peace Richard Chamberlain. But yeah, this is just on a whole other level.
Yes. A
whole other level. And just after last week's episode, I just holy shit, like I just couldn't believe what I was watching. Just the risks that they're taking here. It's just beautiful. All right, let's wrap it up here. My thanks to Marty out there in Dublin, staying up till past 2:00 in the morning just to come up here and talk some samurai films. I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, and let's do it again real soon. You're always welcome here, and let's keep in touch. Well, we always do. Lord Billanaga-sama, thank you very much for joining me for this one. I'm glad you were able to persevere in reading and not go through the dubbed version of that, because that just would have been fucking atrocious. And my thanks to John K. Alvarez, who came straight from a long day of work to come in and hang out
to the party, baby.
With the breeze. Yeah, man. I appreciate all of you. All
right,
right,
go see the movie, Eric.
Yeah, Eric, go see the fucking movie. Of all the ones for Eric to miss, this one. Shit.
Wait,
all right,
Eric's not here?
He was here in the comments. He couldn't make it for this one of all fucking movies. So, yeah, it hurt me, but he's like, just too much going on in life right now. So I need a week.
You got it.
So we will see you all in the next video. Have a good day, everybody, and God bless you. Have a good one.
Peace.
Okay,